The night smelled of burned circuits and alien blood. Arya moved through the wreckage of Outpost KL7 like a ghost wrapped in shadow, her boots making no sound on the scorched metal grating beneath her feet. Around her, the ruins of what had been humanity's easternmost trade stations smoldered in the dark, twisted steel beams, shattered glass domes, supply crates split open like cracked eggs leaking grain and medicine across the floor. The raiders had hit fast. They always did. But they had not yet left. She could hear them, the Vorkai, the wolf-blooded mercenary clan that had terrorized the Outer Rim for 3 decades. Their laughter was guttural and layered, throats built differently than human ones, capable of harmonics that vibrated in the sternum. They were celebrating. She could smell the sour reek of their fermented drink even through her rebreather. 12 of them, her sensors confirmed. Armed with plasma cutters and kinetic rifles. Heavily armored in the patchwork fashion of their kind, bone plates harvested from defeated enemies fused over adaptive polymer mesh. They had taken 6 human hostages and penned them in the station's med bay. The hostages were alive. For now. And at the center of it all, seated on a throne he'd constructed from broken supply crates and the torn banner of the Human Frontier Authority, sat Darius. Darius was not a small creature. At nearly 3 meters tall, the Raider captain was the physical embodiment of a nightmare that evolution had spent 10,000 years sharpening. His fur was iron gray, shot through with old scars that had grown back wrong, raised ridges of tougher tissue that crossed his muzzle and neck in pale streaks. His eyes, amber and too intelligent, too cold, scanned the room with the casual certainty of a predator who believed, with complete conviction, that nothing in this room could threaten him. He was reviewing the station's inventory manifest on a cracked datapad, occasionally tossing items of interest to his lieutenants. A crate of Terran medicine. A crate of microprocessors. A case of something he held up to the light, tilting his great head. Whiskey, Arya recognized, a gift cargo bound for a colony celebration that would now never happen. He bit the top off the bottle and drank without ceremony. His lieutenants howled approval. Arya was already inside the ventilation shaft above him. She had been for 11 minutes. She had spent those 11 minutes doing what humans did better than almost anything else in the known galaxy. She had waited. Motionless. Controlled. Breathing at 4-second intervals, her heart rate deliberately slowed through a technique her grandmother had taught her, a grandmother who had been a freediver on Earth, who had understood that the body's panic was negotiable if you simply refused to acknowledge it. She had watched. She had counted. She had memorized the patrol pattern of the 2 guards at the door, the blind spot created by the broken Eastern sensor array, the 4.2-second window every 90 seconds when no Vorkai eyes were facing the ceiling grate above the captain's chair. Humans, Arya had been told by her instructor at the Frontier Combat Academy, were not the strongest species. Not the fastest. Not the most durable. Their bones broke easily. Their skin was fragile. They required constant hydration and sleep and an absurd range of nutrients just to function. What they were, her instructor had said, was patient. And creative. And deeply, profoundly difficult to discourage. Humans, the old veteran had said, don't win fights by being better. They win by making the fight happen on their terms, not anyone else's. Arya had taken that lesson and built an entire philosophy around it. She waited for the window. It came. She dropped from the ceiling grate in silence, landed in a controlled roll behind the captain's throne, and drove the first of her tungsten-tipped neural disruption pins into the base of Darius's skull before he registered she existed. The effect on Vorkai physiology was not incapacitation, she had known it wouldn't be. Their nervous systems were redundant, distributed, built for exactly this kind of assault. What it did do was interrupt the signal pathway to his left arm and flood his sensory cortex with noise for approximately 3 seconds. 3 seconds was all she needed. She was already moving, not away from him, which every instinct would demand, which he would anticipate, but through him, vaulting over his right shoulder, catching his chin with her elbow on the way past, using his own mass and her momentum to spin herself into a landing position between him and his two nearest lieutenants. The lieutenants had their weapons up. Too slow. She had a compact EMP grenade in each hand, she'd pulled them on the drop, and she released both simultaneously at floor level, skidding low as they detonated. The plasma weapons went dark. The kinetic rifles stayed live, they were mechanical, not electronic, but for 2 heartbeats, the Vorkai were patting at dead triggers, recalibrating, and that was enough for her to be somewhere else entirely. She moved through them like water finding cracks in stone. Not fighting, redirecting. A rifle barrel pointed away. A heavy body used as a counterweight. A precisely placed strike to the knee joint of a Vorkai, the one point of genuine structural weakness in their otherwise formidable frames, sending the creature down into the path of his packmate's swing. They were powerful. They were fast. But they were fighting on instinct now, pack brain engaged, reacting to stimuli rather than thinking. Humans, she had learned, were the only species in the catalogued galaxy that could hold a long-term tactical model in their heads while also engaging in close-quarters combat. It was, biologically speaking, bizarre. It was also extraordinarily useful. She knew where every one of them was. She knew where they were going to be. They had no idea where she was going to be. It took 4 minutes and 17 seconds. When it was over, 9 Vorkai were unconscious and 3 were restrained with the cargo tie strips she'd pre-cut and threaded through her belt loops on the way in. None were dead. She had made a point of that, not out of mercy, exactly, but because corpses made for complicated diplomacy and live prisoners made for leverage. Darius was the last. He had recovered from the neural disruption and come at her with the full force of his 3-meter, 400-kilogram frame, a charge that had cracked the wall when she sidestepped it, that had left dents in the floor plating from his claws. He was breathing hard now. She was not. "You're one of them," he snarled. His accent was thick, the translator implant in her ear smoothing the vowels. "One human." "Yes," said Arya. "This isn't," he stopped. His amber eyes moved around the room. Catalogued what she'd done. How? "I had 11 minutes to think about it," she said. She could see the moment he decided to charge again. It was in the microtension of his hindquarters, the slight drop of his left shoulder. She had studied Vorkai attack biomechanics for 40 hours in the 3 days before this mission. She let him come. And when he was committed, fully airborne, momentum irrecoverable, she dropped flat to the floor, drove an upward strike into the nerve cluster beneath his ribs with all the mechanical leverage she could generate, and guided his own trajectory into the floor face first. He did not get up. By dawn, the hostages were free. By dawn, the Frontier Authority response team had arrived to collect the prisoners. By dawn, word had spread through the encrypted channels of the Vorkai network, because the Vorkai, for all their brutality, were meticulous record keepers, and their communications had been running open because they had not expected anyone to survive to listen. The message passed from pack to pack across 6 systems. Darius has fallen. Taken by a single human. Female. No augmentations. No pack. She came from the ceiling and she did not make a sound until it was over. The Vorkai had a word, Shalvor, that translated poorly into standard. It meant something between a storm that gives no warning and a death that arrives before the fear does. They did not give it to outsiders. They had not given it to any creature outside their own species in recorded history. They gave it to her. When the response team commander found Arya sitting on the steps outside the med bay, drinking water from a ration pack, he stared at the interior of the station for a long, silent moment. "How?" he finally asked. Arya looked up. She looked like a person who had done her job and was tired and would like breakfast. "They were stronger," she said simply. "So I didn't fight them. I just made sure I was somewhere they weren't, until they ran out of options." The commander looked at the room again. "And you just waited?" 11 minutes. He was quiet for a moment. That's it? Arya finished her water. That's everything, she said. They would tell the story for a generation. Not the fighting, the waiting. 11 minutes in the dark above a raider captain who could have killed her with one hand, and she had simply waited. Thought. Planned. And then moved so precisely that by the time anyone understood what was happening, it was already over. The wolves called her Shalvor. The humans just called her Arya. Both were afraid of her. Only one of them understood why they should be.